I've got this feather-filled pillow from IKEA, and it's about, I think it's 26 by 16 inches, which is just a little too large for my pillow cover. So I am actually going to show you how to alter this. So I can't find my seam ripper. I'm just using this little pair of snippers here to open the seam. And once I get this open, we're going to offload the feathers into this plastic bag here. So I'm just going to continue opening this off camera, and then I'll show you the next step. Now that the end is open, I'm going to take my large plastic bag here, and it doesn't have to be clear. It's just, that's what I have. I'm going to put my hand in the bag all the way to the bottom. So my hand's at the bottom here. Just going to turn this around, and I'm going to pop this right inside. So now the pillow's inside, I'm going to grab it from the other end. Here we are at the other end, and I'm sort of halfway there. We're just pushing the feathers back. And the fabric is folding back in on itself. So I'm pushing the feathers out as I pull the fabric back. And there we go. And just keep pushing the feathers into the bag. I've got plenty of room down at the bottom here, so I'm just going to keep pushing. And before I lift the pillow form out, I'm going to get off as many feathers as I can. You just want to try to contain as many of the feathers as you can. So I'm just going to keep cleaning away at this and pushing the feathers into the bottom of the bag here to keep them contained, and then I'll be back to show you next steps. So there's my bag of feathers, and I'm going to pull this form out as soon as I get it cleaned off. I'm just going to push them back into the bag. They are very staticky with the plastic, so now I'm going to take the ends and just fold them, tuck them in. So that I can contain the feathers. And I'm simply going to tie this together in a loose knot. And there you've got your feathers contained in the bag. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the form, and we're going to cut it down to size and restitch it. So here's the extent of the feathers that didn't get captured in the bag, and that's really not too bad. So you just have to do it slowly and be careful with it, and then you can be certain that too many feathers won't fly into the air. To remove some of these fine feathers from the inside of the pillow form, I'm just going to run some tape over the inside just to capture those. The quills do tend to stick, so I'm just going to clean it up as best I can so I don't have too many feathers getting away. And that does a good job of capturing them. You can also use those, they have those clothing ones that are sticky that have the removable adhesive that you can just use. I don't have that, so piece of tape just rolled back on itself is perfectly fine. At this stage, if you're just going to be washing this to launder it, you can take a vacuum cleaner and just gently vacuum up any feathers. Don't take it to the fabric though face down, because it will suck up the fabric. So you just want to take it gently along the side and just vacuum up what's loose. And then you can launder it as you would normally. As you can see, vacuuming in that manner really does help. So now that that's done, I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to measure out the size that I want to alter this to, and we're going to take it to the sewing machine. Now, I did notice that when it was stitched originally at IKEA, that they've got a fine row of double stitching here. So that's probably to keep the feathers put, and I'm going to do the same thing with a very fine stitch and a double row of stitching. I now have the cotton cover marked up, and I'm removing 4 inches from this side, and I'm going to take off 1 1/4 inches here. The fabric is now cut and it's ready to take to the sewing machine to stitch. At the sewing machine, I'm going to start at the open edge here, and I'm going to stitch 3/8 of an inch. So I've got a fine stitch. I'm on a number 2 here. I'm going to back stitch. Then I'm going to turn the corner here. We're going to finish stitching the rest of this long edge. Now once this is done, I'm going to do a second row of stitching, and I'll show you that in a minute. So there's 1 row of stitching done. I'm going to do exactly the same thing and just do a fine stitch just to complete that so that the feathers can't come out. At the open edge here where I'm going to stuff the feathers back into, I also have to do a little bit of a seam here. So let's just stitch that. And I did leave, actually, I misspoke before, I did leave a little bit more of a seam allowance at the open edge here. I left 1/2 inch. So that's more than enough for the opening. I also want to point out that I did serge this edge, although it's not necessary, but I have a serger, so I thought, why not? So now we're ready to stuff again. We're going to go ahead and fill this opening and then close it back up. IKEA's FJÄDRAR pillow really is a beautifully constructed feather pillow. You really can't beat the price either. At only $8, it really is worth it for me to alter it to fit my pillow form. So here's a pillow form, all done, all sewn. Now it's time to restuff it with these feathers. And once that's done, we're going to stitch up the opening and we're going to see how the Kayla pillow cover looks. So now I'm prepping to restuff the form with the feathers, and I've put my plastic bag into a shallow container here. And I've kept 1/2 of it knotted up, and I've opened up the second half of the bag because it is wide so that I can access the feathers. Then what I've done with the pillow form is I've put that into a plastic bag, and then I just rolled back the fabric so that I've got my opening here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stuff this right into the box along with the feathers, and then I'm just going to grab and stuff right in here. So that I don't have far to go. I'm just going to continue stuffing. I'm going to make sure I get it right down in there as I go. So the plastic on the outside will keep the feathers from sticking to the fabric, so I won't have that much cleanup when I'm done. As you're stuffing the feathers in, make sure that you're getting right down into the corners, right here. One of my biggest pet peeves are pillows that have those floppy corners that really aren't stuffed and filled out. So I'm going to get right down in there and just make sure it's crammed full. And just keep on transferring feathers until it's fully stuffed and plump. Now you're going to have leftovers, so if you like, you can make yourself another little stuffed thing. I'm sure I'll have a use for it at some point for something else. I'll upcycle something with the leftover feathers. They're not going to go to waste. Now when they do this in the factory, they just like blow the feathers right in. It's a very quick process. This is going to take you a little bit of time, but just keep at it and you'll get her done. And I do suggest that you don't have a sweater on when you're doing this. I've got bare arms so that the feathers aren't sticking to me. Doing it this way with the pillow in this plastic bucket here and also the feathers keeps them pretty well contained. I hardly have any leakage outside. There's just a few in the container itself down in here that you can easily just scoop up after. And if you have to, you can vacuum the area when you're done and you'll be pretty much feather free. What I want to show you here is the plastic that's holding the feathers right now. I've got it sort of funneled inside the pillow so that I can just scoop and just put it right in. And that tends to help direct it too. Now, the feathers do tend to be very staticky, so I would suggest maybe trying a fabric softener sheet on your hand if you find that it's sticking too much. I don't have a fabric sheet to try right now, but if you do try it, you're gonna have to let me know if it works. As you near the top, you're gonna have more stuffing in the pillow form than you do in the bag itself. And it's really a judgment call as to how much you're gonna stuff this. You don't want it too full that it's gonna be like round. So at this point, I'm just gonna back off and I'm gonna pull the plastic from inside the pillow. So that's out. Just gonna close that off. I'm gonna stand this up and we're gonna see where we're at. Let me just see if I can turn this around to show you. I'm going to roll it back up. As you can see, it's quite full at the bottom, and I'm going to have to redistribute it a little bit at the top just to even it out. So I'm just going to pull it around to the sides. But keep it all in there as you go. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to put a running stitch in the top, and then I'm going to redistribute the feathers around and see if I like how stuffed it is. I can try it with my pillow form and test it out, and then if I find that it's not enough, I'm just going to take the running stitch out and add some more stuffing. So at this point I'm just going to clean up, take it to the machine and do that. So when we're back, we're going to try it on the pillow form and see whether it's stuffed to my liking. I lifted the pillow form out of the bucket, and as you can see, there are no feathers sticking onto the outside. Everything is self-contained. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal up this opening here. I finger pressed it to get that edge. And I'm just going to insert a few pins right here and then take it to the machine and do that running stitch. Either my needles aren't sharp or this is a really tightly woven cotton, which is very high quality. So there. Maybe just one more, just to make sure I don't have any accidents on the way to the sewing machine. So again, That is very tightly woven. I can barely get a needle through there. Very high thread count. And again, guys, I really can't believe this pillow is only $8 in Canada at IKEA. Like, you really, really can't beat that quality. So I'm gonna leave it in the plastic bag and just take it right to the machine and stitch it right up. The running stitch on the opening of the pillow is now complete, and it's just a long running stitch. So it's now sewn closed. I can remove the plastic now. There's just maybe a handful of feathers that escaped. Like, essentially, that accounts for the mess that I have. So everything was pretty self-contained. It's just a couple clinging here. I'll just get rid of these. Now I'm gonna go get the Kayla pillow cover and we're gonna give it a try. But before I do, we can now remove the plastic. Give this a shake. And what you want to do is try to work some of those feathers down to the other end. So just give it a good shake and try to redistribute some of those feathers so that it's nice and stuffed at this end too. So I'm going to work on that off camera. Okay guys, this is the moment of truth. I've got my Kayla pillow form here. I'm just going to unbutton it and give this a try. Let's see how this looks. So let's flip this around. Now I probably should cut these labels off, and I will at some point, but it's nice for people that are getting this as a gift to know that these are brand new materials. So far so good. Let's button it up. So here it is, guys. Here's the back. And it's looking perfectly fine. I'm just going to flip it over to the front. And it's plump and lovely. And one feather to spare. Not too bad. So if I had to do it all again, guys, I definitely would, because you're getting great quality with IKEA. You're getting a feather stuffing, which is just, I think, beyond compare to fiberfill. And I just love the way it turned out.